Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we've been working on initial planning. You know, we've completed all the things we need to do for initial planning. We've even, we calculated our initial velocity as a team using, the minimum activity of what they can do. We agreed on our cadence. That's going to be a 2-week cadence. We even determined our MVP by doing a release planning, right? We determine what our MVP will be, right? So those are the things we did yesterday. We also defined some definition of done. And I mentioned that some of the things that we can use for definition of done are things like QA testing must be completed for each stories, UAT testing must be completed by the PO. Some organization will use things we call invest, right? Invest is also is like what you can use for your definition of ready as well. So those are some of the things you can use to determine your definition of ready. So those are some of the things we discussed yesterday. Okay, so with that, we finalize our initial planning, right? So let's imagine that we have our release planning, we have our MVP, so we know what we want to achieve, we know what we want to start with. And we said this in Mural. Okay, let me go to Mural. So we agreed that this is going to be our release 1 item, the MVP, right? And we said this will be release 2, or just say this will be in our backlog. Sometimes some people plan ahead, they do release 2, release 3, but you cannot as well. So this is in the backlog. We've planned for our release 1. So we're now saying that we should put these items now in our Jira, because Jira is what we use for our tracker. That was what we discussed yesterday, right? So imagine our definition of ready to be before something gets into, oh, sorry, what I said yesterday was definition of done. Sorry, this is definition of done. Before you can say you're done with the story, right? We've agreed that our definition of done, QA testing must be completed, UAT testing must be completed by the PO. We must do a demo, finalize work to stakeholder for acceptance. So this is our definition of done. But our definition of ready is for each of these story cards. Remember this register, browse, playlist, purchase, payment, platform, rating, affiliate, share, they are all epic, right? But all this story card that you've moved now to Jira, we've created sprint 1. I'll move them back because I want to show people how to do that, okay? Well done, well done. Well done, everyone that worked on this, okay? Thank you so much. Thank you. That's Tokwe, Erica, Sonny, Chineye. That's Erica. I know some of you did not assign yourself, but it's fine as well. Thank you, everyone. Can see your names up here. Okay. So we decided that all these our stories and this epic, let's create them on the Jira board. Right? Why are we creating them on the Jira board? Someone will say, why can't we do it from here? You know that if we continue to do it here and keep moving it here, that we've completed this, it can get very messy, right? Because right now I believe that this is already even messy for some people, right? In some team where they collocate together, they do that. They have it on the board, right? They keep moving it and all that, collocated team. But you know now, everything is virtual, right? You don't have team in the same location anymore. So Jira is one of the tools that is used to manage that backlog. So let's imagine that we've added all the stories to the backlog, okay? So, and we've added them to the playlist. So edit playlist will be under playlist. You know, yesterday I told you you can just move it and it will go. Post-trial music. Let me just put it maybe on that playlist. Let's just see, right? So now we have all our story cards, right? So, but for each of these story card, right? For you to say this story card is ready, right? For you to say, oh, this story card is ready to be worked on, right? It must agree with your definition of ready, right? Now, what I mean by your definition of ready is invest is what most organizations use. So what is invest? Invest means that the work is independent, right? That work can be delivered by itself, right? That means all the dependencies are known regarding that work, right? When you now say N is negotiable, right? We're saying that you can negotiate that work. It's open for discussion, right? So what does that mean? When we're estimating, you can negotiate. You can say, okay, can we do this now? Why do we want to do it? Let it be clear. Estimable is you should be able to estimate the complexity and effort, right? That's E, right? Negotiable is where you're saying that why should we do this work? Should we do it now? What are we going to get out of this? You can negotiate it. It's open for discussion, right? Then V is valuable, right? So the stakeholder can see the value of why you are doing that work, right? And E is estimable. That means you can estimate it, right? You can look at that work and it can easily estimate that work, that this is going to take us 5 story points. This is going to take us 8 story points. You can easily estimate it based on the complexity. If it's too much, that means you have to maybe create another epi, right? Because you realize that the work is too is something that you still need to break it down more, right? Then it is small enough, right? So meaning that it's small enough, you can plan, right? You understand the level of certainty, as in you have a decent level of certainty regarding that work, right? So let's say we want to create home page. We have an understanding of what it should look like, right? And the last one is testable. We can test it. So that's how people determine their definition of ready, okay? So let's imagine now. So now we've documented all our backlog. You can see that we have story points added, right? But we didn't have for some. But let's just imagine that we have all the story points. Or let me just quickly add to you so that I can show you. So this is how. So let's just say that we are picking up this story point from what we had on the board, right? In some scenarios, I told you that some team will now re-estimate during initial planning, right? They will re-estimate. And when I told you that we did that estimation then, so that we can get how long it's going to take us, so that you can understand how you're going to tell your stakeholder what the release will be in terms of your release 1, right? Sorry, 1 second, my phone is on. So you can know how long it's going to take, right, for you to actually get that job done. So that's why we did that estimation, right? Now, some team will continue with that estimation because that estimation we did, we just quickly did it, but naturally it will take time. People will discuss it, they will plan it, right? So they can go ahead and say, for us to actually do this home page, it will take us 1 story point, right? But sometimes they can re-estimate. By the time they start breaking down the work to actually see how long it's going to actually take, then they will do a proper estimation. So before we start doing our sprint 1, because you have to do the refinement, right? Because I told you that pre-refinement, you want to start sprint 1 now, but for you to start sprint 1, you need to do some pre-refinement of the work, right? But before we start that, I want us to watch the release planning video. Then after that, we do our backlog refinement, pre-sprint 1 backlog refinement, then we'll do our sprint 1, okay? So I'm going to play the video for you now just to watch how this team did their release planning. Okay. Let me share. Okay. We already did release planning yesterday, so I just want you to watch the video to see it from another perspective. Okay. Let me share sound.
Our next activity is around release planning. So the team's already determined their initial velocity, and they estimated that they can get this story and this story done within the first iteration. And how we did that is they broke down all the tasks for that story and acted like they were having a sprint planning meeting and determined this is how much we think we can actually have as our capacity. So that's the best way to estimate initial velocity, is to really break down the work and almost do a mock planning meeting to see how much can I really fit in the next iteration. So based on that, team, can you just come take a look at the backlog and sort of begin to build your release plan? Knowing what we have on the backlog, which stories do you think you can get done in which iteration? This is just a high-level plan now, product owner. We want you to know this is going to change. Okay. So the plan that we've got over here is just a temporary plan. It just helps us figure out how many iterations we're going to need, but it will definitely change. So go ahead and get started.
So it sounds like we've said for about 2 weeks we can get about 11 points completed. So, you know, I don't know what I guess based on our dependency chart, the next story that I see is this one. If you guys can just go ahead and start helping me move these, I'm going to do it based on. I think so.
I
really want all of ours done right away. Mm-hmm. So can we move some of these?
See, Melissa, what we have here is just a 2-week iteration. And so within the 2-week iteration, in order for us to be able to provide you with high quality and keep these stories to your definition of done, which doesn't just mean done with development, but also well-tested, as well as having you verify it, what we need to do is follow the velocity of the team. So the team is saying all they can do is 11 points. Now we'll divide these up into the different iterations and we'll let you know how much the team is able to get done every iteration. And again, these will change. So.
Okay. And Melissa, the last thing we want to do is tell you we can do it all and only deliver 11 story points, or your first 2 stories. Okay. We want to be honest with you based on how much time we have, the resources we have. So if we can only do 11, the key is, are these your top 2 out of all these?
Okay.
If these are not your top 2, then you definitely have the freedom to rearrange these. You can always move these around until we start this sprint.
Okay, well those were my top 2 on the dependency, so
those are the ones. And Melissa, just to be very clear, you completely have top authority on the prioritization. Okay. But in Agile, the rule is the team makes self-commits to what they can get done with an iteration. Okay. So we cannot actually tell the team how many to get done with an iteration, even though they'll be happy to help, but they will pull from the backlog. If they get done early and they have capacity, they will pull for the remaining backlog. Okay. So team, based on what you feel your capacity is, sort out the stories and the plan.
So based on what Melissa said, I think we just move this one down a little bit, if you're okay with that. This seems to be her priority. So then we'll move this one to maybe iteration 3. Okay. All right, so if you want to keep going with the rest of them, I'll move the ones she had last iteration. So there you go. Perfect.
If you guys can get 11 points done, why don't we change this one to 5 so that we can get it done with these?
Well, that was our estimated effort for that one, so we can't really change the effort. We can.
But they don't mean anything. They're just numbers, right?
But they mean in relation to the other stories. So we can't just adjust the numbers because we think it's less or more now, because it's still the same amount of work.
Yeah, what's at risk there is if we truly think this is an 8 for complexity, sorry, Bill, if we think this is an 8, and we want to change it to a 5, it's still an 8. We still have more work, and we're at risk of not getting that done for you.
So I mean, what's going to happen if you do something like that is, you'll find that the development got done in time, but then the QA is behind and you won't have the high quality that you'd like there.
Our goal is always, if we commit to sprint 2 to get all this done, we want this done. And we will define the definition of done for each of these stories and have goals for each iteration, each sprint.
So can we just start this one, but not get it all the way done in this sprint?
That is an option, but we would still keep it in the next iteration. And as we complete Melissa's 2 top priorities, then we'd pull from the next sprint. But to have it here, then that would be part of our velocity, and we know we couldn't get it all done. So what we do is we do the pull method. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yep. How about the remaining stories, or is that pretty much all we can get done? Okay, so these are the remaining stories in the backlog. Okay, so
unless we add another iteration.
That's right. So here's the moment of truth right now. Based on the team's velocity and based on what they think they can get done, this is sort of our hardening iteration. This is the one that we wanted to keep at the end to do final regression testing, just making sure that things are right before we move to production, and then this is our install. Here's the remaining items on the backlog. So the options that you have right now are either to take some of these out so you can fit some of these in, and they have to be ones that don't have a dependency. The other option that you have is we can add a couple more iterations, 2 or 3 more iterations to finish what you've got over there. So what's your thought process in terms of this release?
Can we just make this last iteration like 8 weeks long and then we could just finish up?
What do you think about that, Scrum Master?
She's good.
She's really good.
That is always an option, but what that does for you is it will ruin our velocity. Our team decided 2-week iterations, so we know what our production is. Adding 8 weeks, that's more of a traditional or waterfall approach. So we will wait for 8 weeks before you see working software. That way you don't get our commitment of 2 weeks, you don't get stories done, things just elongate, you'll get frustrated, you want to see working software.
Your best friend are fixed iterations.
We're time boxed.
It's those time boxes that allow you to predict how much the team is actually getting done. And the minute you start messing around with the time boxes, so it's a variable now, you've lost velocity. And trust me, there's no number that you've had before traditionally that's like velocity. Velocity will help you predict that, especially for a mature team, this team's getting 15 points done every iteration, and you've got 150 points done on the backlog. That's about 10 iterations plus or minus 2. And that's almost very close to reality as you can get compared to what we've had before. So you don't want to mess with iteration lengths. You'll lose your velocity.
Melissa, I heard you say 8 weeks, so what we'll do is we'll take those 8 weeks and we can spread them out over 4 iterations.
Okay.
So we can add 4 more sprints.
We're going to talk to Lisa. Yes, we're going to talk to her.
Where is Lisa, by the way? I heard she was going to come in too.
Here comes our sponsor.
I'm here.
I think she's going to be very focused on the thing.
Perfect timing. We have our release plan up here on the wall. Starting with
Lisa, come
iteration
on closer, just so we can show you this wall.
Yeah. This is our iteration 0. We do all our setup, our access, database setup, make sure we have the right software, even some high-level designs. Iteration 1 is really where we kick it in gear and start writing the designs, the detailed designs, the
Come on this
coding.
side if you don't mind, just so you can see it clearly. Forget the hardening iteration.
Iteration 1 is where we really start the design work, detailed designs, start the coding and the testing. And Melissa, the product owner, said these are her top 2 stories. This is what she wants us to get done. The team actually had a mock sprint planning meeting and tasked these out to find out just how much work it would be. And this is a 3 and an 8 for a story point. We think we can get 11 story points done per iteration.
Okay.
And those story points are based on the complexity of these stories.
So not 11 hours, obviously, just 11 points from a complexity standpoint.
Right.
Okay.
And this is iteration 2, 3, and then that's basically what we thought we'd do is 5 sprints, 5 iterations based on what you have given us for budget and schedule. Behind you is more stories, some of our lower level, nice to haves that Melissa have prioritized. There's a few in there, right, Melissa, that you would really like to get done, you have to get done. And so what we were thinking about doing, some are recommended that maybe we add a couple iterations.
Actually, I need to clean something up. Our business user stuck the story in here. And so we just want to make sure, because the team's velocity was not going to cover this one, and our business user wanted to get this done. But are you okay that we need to put this back in the backlog?
Yes.
We'll probably get started and not finish this, and that would not
After
be
you
good.
explain to me how that works, yes, that one should have been
Okay.
Nice move.
Yeah, nice move.
So what we're thinking about adding a couple more iterations so you can get all your functionality.
So how does that affect, though, our overall timeline?
It would elongate it.
Okay.
So what we need to do is understand yours, Melissa's requirements, what's your high value versus the cost, and negotiate on what will meet your needs. And what we can, there's a lot of things we can do. We can put all this in production. You could use it, see how it works. Maybe even do some assess and adjust. Then we can have a second release and do whatever your next high priorities are.
Well, I guess one of my thoughts is that with Agile, this is flexible, right? You said that this may change depending on the
Absolutely. Yeah, we're just
progress and all.
We're trying to let you know very early on,
Right.
based on our velocity of about 11, we'll just say 10 points per iteration, and we have about 3 iterations, that's about 30 points. So you have to pick your top highest value 30 points to get done. And you can continue to change it. Obviously, you don't want to change it so dramatically that the team's starting and stopping.
Right.
But yes, you can absolutely, we can be flexible here. But what you've got that you're working at is about 30 points, give or take. So
Okay, so is that clear? Does it add some more, does it throw some more light to release planning? You can see that discussion they are having with the stakeholder and product owner, making sure that this for the release one, this is what we can achieve, right? This is what we can get out, right? So if you know these are your value items, these are the ones you have prioritized, these are the functionalities you're going to see, right? So even out of those 5 sprints that they've planned out that they want to do, it doesn't mean that they have to walk throughout all those sprints. Some of those sprints are going to be in readiness for production, during proper testing, right? To be sure that, okay, we can release this to production, right? So, but they also talk about not changing the iteration, right? That's the sprint. They call it iteration, right? Because you get some organization, they call it iteration, not changing the timeline. We've agreed to 2 weeks, don't change it. It's difficult because stakeholders, product owner will be giving you different suggestions, especially if your product owner is not really into agile, you'll be having those kind of discussions, right? So those are some of the things I wanted to see. Is there any question? Ima says, so the team can pull from the backlog or the next sprint if they finish a sprint earlier than planned. So if they finish some items in the sprint, they can pull from the backlog into that sprint. But that happens when the sprint's velocity is not really, like the team has not gotten very familiar with their velocity. Over time, it will stabilize. You realize that they will pull only based on their velocity, they will know what item they can pull in, right? So it will not happen often, but sometimes it will happen as well, right? So they can pull from the backlog. Erica.
Hi, Florence. There was mention of starting and stopping and how that can impact the development team. So what I'm thinking is, again, from the business side, when they're pulling from the backlog and they say, well, you know what, we want this, would the development team have enough pushback to say anything that you pull from the backlog has to be connected to what we're already building? So they're not starting from scratch with certain things, like just to keep the momentum going?
Yeah, so that they are not changing the goals of
Can they?
Yeah, they do that. And remember, it's the developer that will decide because they are the one that will commit to it, right? Remember that. And the sprint, there is no space. When you finish one sprint, you're starting another sprint. So during that sprint, they are already doing refinement in readiness for the next sprint. You know, I told you that they will pick some of the days. When I did that day 1 to day 10, they will have been doing refinement. So some of the items are already refined in the backlog. They know the one that was supposed to can also be added to that sprint, but they could not do it because of their velocity, right? So if they have capacity, they can now move it and do it, right? But this might not even happen frequently, right? It's just it can happen, but it's not very regular, right? You have to monitor the team to ensure that you have the right velocity for the team, okay? So that you know that the work they pull in for that sprint is accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, at the sprint really back to back, no break in between, not even a day. Sounds stressful. Yes, it can be stressful. There is no break, right? But that's why you're looking at the effort and the complexity of your work. I will tell you there are 2 types of planning, right? There is the one that they plan with velocity, and you get to organization, they actually plan in hours. I don't like that one. Some organization plan in hours, right? So that one is to me, I don't like it because for you to plan that capacity is stressful. You have to consider the holidays. You have to consider the time the team spend in meetings, right? You have to, so it's a lot, right? So most teams use this story point. But if you get an organization that calculates in hours, you might need to do more work. Okay? Vinita.
So when that when that planning is usually done for hours or the days?
For what? Sorry. Which meeting are you talking about now?
So when right now you're talking about like some organization, they plan in hours and some organization in days.
Mm-hmm.
So when that, in what point of project that meeting is held? Is it or this is
Okay. So those hours, they expect you to do it during your sprint planning. But let me be candid with you. You have to do your capacity planning before the sprint planning. Because if you don't know it, that means you'll be calculating the hour during the sprint planning. You want to know if my team has 50 hours capacity, right? So that when they start pulling the work in, when it's 50 hours, you can say, oh, we have already reached our capacity for this sprint. So you want to know, right? So what you can do is you can just meet up with your team, understand, or you already have a spreadsheet in place. When you first start, if it's a new team, you might have that initial meeting where you get all their capacity. Is anybody going to be on holiday this week? Is anybody going to be on away or things like that? Is there going to be a training? You remove all those hours, right? Now, when you remove all those hours, so when you get to your meeting, you say, oh, for this planning, we have 50 hours, right? I'm using 50 hours for an example, right? It might even be one individual that has 50 hours for the week, right? So and remember, you've done those hours in regarding to their allocation. I will show you an example. I'll try and put that on the board I'll show you how to do the allocation and the capacity. So what I mean by that is 50%. So let's say, Vinita, you have 50% on this project, right? And what that means is that if you work 8 hours a day, that means you can only commit 4 hours to that project in a day, right? So in 5 days, you can only commit 20 hours. So I know Vinita's capacity for this project is 20 hours, but out of that 20 hours, is there going to be any training for you this week? You might say, oh, I need to attend my code and ethics training 1 hour. Oh, I'm going to be off 1 day. 4 hours out, 1 hour, 4 hours, 5 hours. So for this sprint, your capacity is 15 hours, right? Because you have to consider all those things. So the Scrum Master will put all those details together. So the Scrum Master will now know that, okay, this is the capacity we have for this sprint. But if it's in velocity, how you get your velocity, we did our initial velocity, 16, right? So for you to get your velocity, let's say the first sprint, you did 16. The second sprint, you finished 22. The third sprint, you finished 19. You now say 16, 22, 19. You add it up, then you divide it by 3. Then you now say, okay, this is the velocity of the team. Then over time, about 6 sprints, you will now realize that you have a stable velocity for your team, right? And that's what you'll be working on for your capacity planning. So anytime you get to sprint planning, you say, oh, okay, when they start pulling in work, so our commitment to velocity is 33 points. Our velocity is 33 points. So you know that they cannot do more than 33 story points, right? Because you can see at that time that the product owner is trying to move more stories to each sprint and stuff like that. But this is what we can commit to, right, as a team. So, and that's your responsibility as a Scrum Master to train. I don't want to use the word train, to teach or to coach the product owner to understand that this is the capacity of the team. They can't commit to more than this and all that.
Okay, I have one more question, Florence, regarding sprints. So can 2 sprints run simultaneously?
2 sprints?
I mean, yes.
No.
It cannot run.
What do you mean by 2 sprints? I need to understand. Is it the same set of people that are doing the job?
Yes, but on the different stories which are not dependent on each other.
So I'm trying to understand your question.
So my question is like, for an example, like you're talking, the sprint is for 15 days. And wherein you are trying to, develop 1 user story or 2 user story as per your team velocity. So can it happen saying that, 2 sprints run by the same team at the, parallelly and develop 2 stories which are not dependent on each other?
So why if they add more capacity, why didn't they add those capacities that they have to that 1 sprint? So let's say that instead of them doing that 11 story point for 1 sprint and they're doing another 11 stories point for 1 sprint, why don't they put that 11 and 11 together and it becomes 22 and they run 1 sprint? they can't run 2 sprints concurrently because they already said they don't have capacity for it. So if you have capacity, add it to that current sprint, right? And get the job done. You are not doing just one user story per sprint. It depends on the size of your team. If you have 9 developers, right?
Okay.
You will have more capacity, right?
Right.
You get what I'm saying, right? So it doesn't mean that they will do 2 story points. It might be 4, it might be 3. It depends, right? It's more about the complexity, the effort, and the capacity that is available for the team. But you cannot run 2 concurrent sprints. You finish one, then you do the next one.
Okay, why I asked you this because for an example, if I added same set of stories in the same sprint, then it is obviously going to take time because you are prioritizing one story at a time. But if there are like few people who are working on this type, one set of stories and the other people who are working on a different set of stories, then the time consumption would be less.
Yeah, but you guys are still one team. So even if you're saying that they are working on one story, they are working on another story, it's still one team. You put the capacity together, right? They are working as one sprint. You don't separate them into different sprints. Okay? They are collaborating together. So you don't say, okay, Benita and Nina, you're in one sprint. That sprint is running. Erica and Gafa, you're in another sprint. That sprint is running. No, they are collaborating together. So if that means that they have to do, they have capacity to do 4 stories, that 4 stories will be in one sprint and they will get it done.
As a whole, as a team?
Yes, as a team.
Okay, got you.
Because, if you pull 2 story points, it might be a lot of work because one story point, you might need to do the UI, you might need to do the flow chart, you might need to do the data work. So one story, different people can be working on it because it has a lot of different activities you need to do to get that story completed.
Right.
Okay? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Inena.
Okay, hi Florence.
I know.
So in addition to what Vanita said, I think what she's trying to say is, what if people in the team are working on 2 different projects? Like project 1 is implementation of something, then project 2 is totally something different. So they can't work in the same sprint, but they are needed in the other sprint. That's question 1. Then the second question I have, well, it's not really a question. I wanted to ask you if I can share my screen to show you a kind of spreadsheet that depicts an agile team for you to interpret it. I think that will give everybody understanding about velocity and the rest of it.
Okay, I'll start with the first one. So you are saying they are working on 2 projects. So
2 different projects that they are not related
for
at
the
all.
project that I'm managing, Inena, if you come to my team, you're working on my project, I will ask you, what is your capacity? Like, what is your allocation to my project? So if you have 2 projects you are working on, you would tell me that the allocation to my project is 40%, right? Meaning that you are not fully on this project, right? It doesn't mean you cannot do other projects. You can do other projects. But 40%, that's your allocation to my team. You get?
So my story in that team will be assigned based on my availability.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that works. So I'm wondering if I can share my screen now. I don't know.
I'm not the one controlling that. I think Ima will decide. Ima will give you the access to be able to share your screen. Okay. Lauren, are the sprints really back to back? Yes, the sprints are really back to back. I know it can be stressful, but sometimes it's enjoyable. It's planning in hours called tasks. Yes, in Kiruka, they do that. So some people will do the velocity, but when they want to actually get the work done, they now do the task in hours. But some people don't even do the task in hours. They will still do the story in hours, right? But some team will do the task in hours. Is it okay to ask about the type of... Yes, you can ask them in interview. Let them understand that you know that some people plan a story point versus hours, and they can ask you that which one is better. But you let them know that in Agile, is more about story pointing because we want to base work on effort and complexity. Okay. at Venita, the team is self-organized. They would have to decide the number of stories exactly. The stories are not developed in sequence. Whatever is decided in the same sprint will have to be worked upon by the team, and it can be done concurrently by the team member, not sequence exactly. Who does the allocation? So the allocation can be the developers will tell you what their allocation is. If you don't want to believe them, you can go ask their managers who they are reporting to, but they will tell you because they know the number of projects they are working on. So if they are working on 3 projects, they will tell you, because some projects are more high priority. They can say, oh, this project is high priority. My capacity, my allocation to this project is 50%. Then maybe they are working on some other little project. They will say, their allocation there is 20%, right? Because they still need about 10% for themselves, right? You can't allocate someone 100%. That means you are over allocating the person, right? But sometimes this discussion happen with the manager, right? The Scrum Master can meet up the reporting manager of that developer and say, okay, he's going to be working on this project. So what's his allocation to this project? They say 40%, at least, so you have an idea of what the allocation is. So the developers will tell you, or you meet with their manager. Okay, Inena, so you said I should do what? What do you want me to do? I should interpret this table.
Yes, this is a challenge that I got from an interview. So I was asked to interpret this as a Scrum Master versus Agile coach. So
as a Scrum Master, they are telling you the roles that are available here. We have engineers, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 engineers. We have 1 product owner, and we have 1 agile coach. Some people, the Scrum Master, they call them agile coach.
The agile coach, yeah.
Yeah. So now, they say sprint 11, A, B, C, D. Okay. So for sprint 11, we'll have 4 engineers, 1 product owner, and 1 agile coach working in sprint 11. Right? And that cuts across to sprint 15. In sprint 16, we'll have 1 more person in addition to the engineer for sprint 16 and sprint 17. Sprint 18, for engineer 6 and 7, they don't have any allocation on that project. So we have only 4 developers, right? Till you get to sprint 20 and 21, then you have 2 more, so 8 people, right? So the team size is varying, right? The table shows you the composition of the development team over several sprints. Each letter represents 1 anonymized team member. So for example, in sprint 12, the development team remained stable, and development team consisted of the same people as in sprint 11. Yeah, that continued like that till sprint 4. They had only 4 people working, 1 product owner and 1 agile coach, right? So what they're saying that they have consistent people that are committed to the project. So these 4 engineers, the 4 engineers are committed to the project, right? While engineers 6, 7, 8 are needed, they are like shared resources. So they are not committed to this project. So this plan is showing you when you will need engineer 6 on your project. Maybe it's coming in as the cybersecurity person to design something. So he's not committed. He's not like a committed member to this project. So during sprint 16 and 17, he will come over and he will work during that sprint on this project. Same thing for engineer 7 and 8. During sprint 20 and 21, they will be needed. Maybe at that time you want to go to production. So you need the production guys, you need the change request guy to help you with your regression testing to move things to production. So maybe they'll be needed at that point in time. So you have to plan ahead, right? So let's say that this is for release 2 now. Sprint 11 to sprint 21 is release 2. So they've planned for that release, and they know the people that are going to be working, and they understand their capacity. Does that make sense to you? Okay.
So this is like the sprint layout.
Yes. So this is just the timing, right? It started July 12 and it's finishing July 25. So how long is that?
That's 2 weeks.
Exactly. So that's the cadence of 2 weeks, right? So they've documented all the cadence so that they can know when they are release planning. So if you look at this now, they are planning for this release 2 by December 12, right? So that's when they are planning for this release. And for each sprint is 2 weeks, right? And there is no break. They finish sprint 11 in July 25th. They start sprint 12 July 26th. The table on the right shows typical layout of Scrum. Yeah, each layout.
Yeah, for the meetings.
Yes, from typical if there was non-working days. Daily board snapshot done immediately after daily audit, except for planning. On the planning day, okay. So this is the board that we are going to see that on Jira now, right? So this is just showing you, okay, you know what this is doing for you. So this is sprint 11 now, right?
Yeah.
During sprint 11, on the to-do list, how did you get 21 here?
So these are stories, like I believe.
Yeah, this is story.
And probably this is a story from previous sprint. I have no idea, so that's why I brought it up here because
I don't understand this. But what they have here is they have story points 8, 8, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. This is what they have to do, right? So they are telling you that they have all this in to do. Then in progress, they have 21. Because I saw 21. 21 is big. When you have something 21, it's an epic. You have to break that story down.
And so the 21 is in progress. So probably they've done some stories and they've moved it. Okay, they've picked out some stories from the
21. Is it total?
It's total stories, and these stories are in progress.
So are you telling me that, okay, on the 12, you are telling me that they had 18, they have 8, I get what
they had like 29 story points, so they already put 21
so
and they're working on it.
So they have 8 story points to do. In progress is 21, 0 in review, 0 is done. Then on day 16, because day 13, 14, and 15, day 13 and 14 is weekend, day 15 is a national holiday. So the next day they need to work is day 16, right? On day 16, they still have 8 story points left, right? That 21 has now reduced to 17, right? Because 4 is now done, right? So what if you do 21 minus 4, it will give you 17. 4 has now been moved to done. So that's why we have 17 there. If you go to day 17, remember that in day 16, we have 8 stories, right? We have 8 stories. In day 17, they now have 5 stories in to do. That means 3 has now been added to 17, right? So if you add 3 to 17, that is 20, right? But they have 18 here because 2 out of that 20 is now in review. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Okay, 2 are now in review, right? Then your 4 is still done. Then on day 18, they have 5 to do, which is carryover from day 17, right? In progress, they have 8 to do. That means out of 18, they have 8 left. That means 10 has moved to review. If 10 moved to review, there was 2 in review before, so we now have 12 in review, right? And 4 is still done. On day 19, 5, then in progress, 8, in review, 11, because 1 is now completed. 1 story point has been completed. That means they moved that to done. Then 4 has now increased to 5. So that's how that will go on till they finish their 20 weeks, their 2-week sprints, right? On the 23rd, they have 5 left. They had nothing in. That's the last day of their sprint, right? 5 left, 0 in progress, 0 in review. And they finished 26 story points. Did you move it? They finished 26 story points. So for them to finish, they will say they finished 26 story points, but 5, they didn't do 5. So they finished 26. You get? So they will say during that sprint, they finished 26, right? But 5 will be returned to the backlog. The same thing will happen to sprint 12. In sprint 12, they finished 34, right? And 8 will be taken back to their backlog. If you scroll down now, is that it? Is that the last one? Okay, 13 for sprint 11, 26, 5 left, For sprint 12, sorry, sprint 13, you're moving too fast. For sprint 13, they finished 35, they have 3 left. So if you now want to calculate the velocity, you now have to use the first 3 or 4 sprints and divide the four sprints and divide it by 4. Then you now get what their average velocity will be, which you will now use in planning for your next sprint. Squad health check is done twice every quarter, so roughly every 6 weeks or every 3 sprints. The table shows the past result of the squad health check for the team. Refer to the blog post from Spotify for more sports check. Okay, so this is just, how will I put it, like a checklist to determine is more like, is either your agile coach is doing it or the scrum master is doing it, right? So they will look at this definition and now determine if the team is doing that, right? Like, mistake and failures are not accepted. I don't feel safe to speak up in meetings. We avoid constructive conflict, right? So you can see, so this is showing that they have red, yellow, green, right? So they're just showing what the health check is over time, right? This is July, right? July, September, November, December, right? So as at December, they are now on 6. I feel safe to be more. So it's more like you give it to the team will document it, right? So let's say some people will tell you they are red, you look at their reviews, then you now see how you can help the team, right, to be more trustworthy, to be for them to be able to speak up, right? Because why they are not speaking up is because they don't feel safe. They feel that if they speak up, you are going to judge them. So it's just for you to help your team, your squad, to be better, right? To be more agile, to uphold those values, right? And the value said that I should be able to speak up, right, during my meeting. I should not feel ashamed, right? So this is just going to help you to make your team better. So that's why you're doing the health check. And as they said, I think they used a checklist that is already existing. To calculate the number we took each member's overtime data for the whole month and divide it by the number of working days. Yes, it depends. Some organizations, they do overtime, some they don't do overtime, right? So what they are doing here is that sometime for you to meet up with work, or maybe something is needed to be done urgently, right? Maybe some team members work overtime, right? So this is what they are calculating the amount of overtime per minute per working day, right? So this will vary for different organizations.
Okay, so with all this data now, so how do you put them together collectively to interpret a team? Let's say you are a scrum master and you get into a team and they give you this artifact for a team that you're going to be working with. So how do you now use this to interpret?
How do you use what to interpret this overtime?
How do you use this data?
Oh, data. From this data, I can know what the velocity of the team is, right? I can determine what the velocity of the team is, right? I can understand that they are planning to go into release but at the end of sprint 21, right? So I know what we are working towards, right? I can use it to track the team, right? To understand that, oh, we don't need to be complacent, right? I know what needs to be done, right? And I also know that they do a lot of maybe overtime here. So I have to make sure that as they are managing the team, they are not just being complacent so that they can ask for overtime, right? And I can use that squad check to also see how the team operates. Are they upholding the Scrum values, right? What are the things you need to do to help that team to uphold those values, right? Do you need to have one-on-one with them? Do you need to understand, do a lot of training, a lot of coaching with them, right? So things like that. Okay. That's what it will help you to do.
Okay, thanks for taking the time. And I apologize to everyone for taking the time.
I hope it helped everyone as well. Yeah. Joy.
Hi, Florence. Sorry, I just wanted to ask if
What's that squad check has anything to do with what's discussed in the retrospective session?
Yeah, it does. So the retrospective session is you discuss the processes, the team, the way they are operating, their capacity, how they are feeling, and all that, right? So the retrospective is just done every 2 weeks, right? The squad check, you don't do it all the time, right? You can just, maybe do it once in a quarter or once in 6 months. Even that one, sometimes the Scrum Master doesn't do it. It's the agile coach for the organization that will come once in a while to check, to make sure that the team is upholding the value, right? But if you are very conversant with it as well, then you do that so as well. You get?
Yes.
But so the retro is key.
Okay.
The retro is key, that you get all this kind of information from the retro.
Okay, and then
but you have to make the team very relaxed so that they can tell you all those details.
Yeah. Okay. So you had used that agile coach terminology, and I think in that video also there's someone that's an agile coach and a Scrum Master. So are they different roles again? An agile coach and a Scrum Master.
Some people use agile coach as like a Scrum Master in some organization, but the role is different. An agile coach help your team to be more agile, the mindset, change the mindset, right? Some Scrum Master to act like agile coach. They coach, they train, they facilitate, So it's like hand in hand. But agile coach is what some Scrum Master be. And some Scrum Master will be a release trained engineer. Release trained engineer are people that work maybe within a safe environment, right? Where they have multiple Scrum, and they're all working on one product. They have to plan, from the program level, right? So that's what most Scrum Master either be, or they become a release trained engineer.
Okay, fine.
Okay, we're having questions. We'll take questions, but when it's 8:30, I'll move to sprint planning, or we'll move to refinement. Chini?
Great. Oh, hi, Florence. Thank you very much. I have 2 questions. On that Excel document that we looked at just now, it would appear that at the end of each sprint, they had like a cumulatively high number of story points that were completed, which still ends up being like an epic. Is that normal?
Because it's normal.
It is? Normal. Okay.
Yeah, it's normal. The team, we are looking at it from the team's capacity. So, yesterday we said our initial velocity is 16. But let's say that for each member of the team, they can actually do, I'm just saying 8, and you have 8 developers. So, and each member of the team can do 8 story points. So what would be their initial velocity?
I'm sorry, say that again.
You have 8 developers, and each of the 8 developers, they can finish 8 story points.
64.
That will be 64.
That will be 64. You see that 64 is more than an epic, right? So that's the velocity. It doesn't have anything to do with the epic.
Okay, that makes sense. Now the second thing is about maintaining sanity amongst your team members. Now, is it the role of the Scrum Master to ensure that people are all moving from red to green? Again, looking at that Excel doc. So is he or she responsible for, because they're all adults, right? As much as we're trying to, make the workplace as healthy and less toxic as possible, is there a role for the Scrum Master to, say, introduce trainings that might help team members? Is it in his place or her place to make such recommendations?
Your responsibility to make the development team happy. What did I say? The development team. The development team decides their Scrum Master, right? Your responsibility is to make them happy. Okay? Sometimes, even if it's for you to go and get gift card from your leaders, from your sponsors, to make them happy, to give them something, to motivate them, you do shout out, you go to your blog, your team's blog or your something, you write story. Erica has been very good. Erica, I'm giving a shout out to Erica. Erica helped us to work on our backlog, and she finished it up and all that. Oh, Tammy has already done the refinement for us. Thank you so much. I'm giving a shout out. That what makes them happy. Some of them want to be recognized. Some of them want to make sure the process is working. So it is your responsibility as the Scrum Master to make sure you do that. Erica is also asking, what are suggestions to improve and maintain high level of psychological safety within your team? Yes, recognition. Some of them want to be recognized. Some of them want to be motivated. Some of them want gifts. Scrum Master, know your team. Okay? Tammy.
Thank you. I just wanted to, just say some things about the Scrum Master and the Agile coach, from what I know, coming from TD. So the Scrum Master, as we know, works within the team itself, and they're supposed to do everything we know that the Scrum Master does. However, the Agile coach, they are usually higher than the Scrum Master, and sometimes they are attached to a team. And when you attach an Agile coach to a team, they're supposed to help the team generally. They are supposed to know more than the Scrum Master, and they're supposed to help implement Agile in the organization. So they seem to know more, and they're also supposed to be there to help the Scrum Master when, maybe when they have issues. So you get to a situation where the Scrum Master is not able to deal with maybe an impediment, they go to the Agile coach. It's usually the Scrum Master going to the Agile coach. It's not expected that the developers will go to the Agile coaches. Yeah. So in organizations where you have them, they're supposed to be there to help the organization move from wherever they are to an Agile
the maturity.
Agile maturity. And they will be the ones to do the training. So when you have training materials, most of the time you'll see the Agile coach is doing the training. And
Agile coach are not meant to manage a team. Their job is not to be doing capacity sprint planning. No. They come and see what you're doing. They help you to get better.
I didn't say they run the team. I just said they usually
No. I get you.
To help when there are issues, like the name, they're coaches, so they will. Because I see some coming to the.
But some organizations use them as
Scrum Master.
So that's why you have to be careful to know what you are applying for. And even when you go to interview, you can correct them. Are you saying an Agile coach? I think you're looking for a Scrum Master to help you run the team, because this is the work of an Agile coach and all that. You can also to make your interview a conversation. Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about what Nena shared. Thank you very much, Nena, for that. And I think somebody was asking that sometimes the story point that was completed seemed to be higher. Mm-hmm. I took note of that, and I think it's also from the first slide that she showed, or the first sheet. There are sometimes they had eight people. I think
8 people when they had more. When they have some of the developers.
So I think that might have added to the number.
Exactly, that can add to it as well. Yeah. But she was talking in terms of the epic, so there's no relationship with the epic.
No. Okay.
Thank you, Temi. Thank you. Okay, that was good. The explanation between the Agile coach and the Scrum Masters. Okay, Erica is saying Agile coach sounds like the head coach on his team, and the Scrum Master sounds like the assistant coach. Oh gosh. Anyway, just be careful, right? If you know that you don't like talking too much, please. Agile coach don't have a team. If you feel that, because I've had people that, they've applied for roles, they've gotten roles, they got Agile coach, and they are telling me they don't have a team, they are bored. I'm like, you don't know your role. You are not supposed to have a team. You are supposed to go around the organization and help them become Agile. Say, oh, no, that's not what I want. I want to have my team. So try and understand what you're applying for when you see those roles, so you understand what you're doing. And some people want that Agile coach role, and they will get there and they will tell them that they should manage about 2-3 teams, and they'll be wondering that, okay, am I a Scrum Master? So understand the role that you're applying for, understand the organization you're going to, and, so that you can, because these things now, you can differentiate it. So when you see it, the kind of question you're going to be asking in the interview, right? So they'll know that, oh, you know what you're saying. Because some organization does not even know this thing. They just want to do agile, and they just need someone to come and help them do agile, right? So they mix up everything together. So you want to be sure that they understand the role that they are taking you in for, right? So that you can define what your performances are going to be at the end of the day. Okay? So we'll go to the screen because we still need to do this, right? So now we need to do, I know there are some questions in the chat. We'll come back. How do you cope with a team that thinks they are agile? Every team thinks they are agile as long as they are doing Scrum. But doing Scrum doesn't make you agile, right? So you have to have those checklists, right? So you have to be able to check. There's a checklist, right? You know, that you can use. There are some questions. I think if you go to Scrum Inc., something like that. That's one I know that someone has mentioned to me. If you go there, you see some checklists you can use, right? It will help you rate that team, right? It will help you because they will think they're agile. They'll think they're doing everything agile, but it's not just by doing Scrum that makes you agile, right? The mindset has to be there. Are you upholding that value? So those are the things you are looking out for. That part of the iceberg that you don't see, right? Those are the things you are trying to make sure that they is imbibed in them, right? Yeah, it's difficult, Nina. It's not easy. It's not easy. You know, there was a team that I worked with before. They were telling me that, no, we have to do this way. We have to do this way. I said, okay, no problem. And I was looking, after a while, they said, okay, I said, okay, let's go meet an agile coach, right? And when the agile coach was talking and they were saying the same thing I've said in the team, and they all kept quiet. I got to a point, okay, ask your questions. And they all kept quiet, right? You know, because they realized that, okay, you people are saying the same thing, right? But they are seeing it from a different perspective. So it's very difficult. You have to just find a way to work with the team, right? Find a way to coach them, find a way to be a leader from behind, like to make things work, right? So there's always a way, right? But you just have to find out what will work with your team might not work for another team. Okay? But some organization, even though they want to be agile, they don't know how to put these practices in place. So they want someone that is Scrum Master that understands all these things. Jira, just come and help us, you know, implement all these tools, right? Even though we've been doing agile, we have an understanding of it, but we don't even know how to put all these tools, you know, we want someone to help us, right? So different organizations have different reasons for hiring a Scrum Master. All those calculations you're doing, some organizations just want someone to come and help them do all that. Okay? So now we have let's say we have all our backlog, and now we want to do our backlog refinement, right? So let's say we have a product owner, and our product owner has been helping us refining this backlog, and the product owner has decided that, okay, what is most valuable for me for the first sprint, what I would like to see, right, is home page. I would like to see home page, right? I would like to see login page, and I would like to see create an account. Let's say this is what is saying is valuable to the product owner, right? So you can see that while we have this for refinement, right? So the team might say, you know, this is showing 11, right? But we estimated that they are going to be able to do 16 story, right? So we can say, okay, what is the next thing that is more valuable here, right? We can say, okay, let's work on contact us as well as part of this, because it's related in a way, right? I can go from the home page to contact us. Like, you know, you look for something that you can still add, but the goal is similar to the things you want to work on, right? So let's say this is what we now have for what the product owner has determined that this is what we classify as will be valuable to us, right? Of more value, right? So now we now have this. So what the stakeholder what the team will now be doing that, they will now look at each of this item, right? They will now start looking at the details to say, okay, for login, right? Oh my God. Oh, did we do this yesterday? I thought someone did that. Okay, so let's take home, right? So let's start from home. So now the team will now take home. So what do we want in home page? Now we are now doing proper refining it. What do we want in home page? What should be in our home page? Okay. So the team will now start discussing what they want to have in the home page, right? This is during refinement. They are trying to refine this story. So what do they want to have in home page, right? Now, you remember that they have different personnel too, right? So let's just look this as from the perspective of the music lover, right? So now they will have their story. Let's say they've determined what their story will be, right? Then let's say this is what the story is. So they will have the description, right? As a music lover, I want a home page that is simple, attractive to get me started on the Flaky app, right? So now they have that story, right? So if they have that story, they will now be discussing, okay, so what kind of home page do you want, right? Oh, they will say, oh, I want the app. I want the app of the Flaky app, like the logo to be on the home page. So I want and I also want the name to be on the page. So they can ask questions like, okay, do you have a slogan? Do you want to have a slogan on the page? You can say, oh, let's stream the music is our slogan. We want to have it on the home page. They are doing all those discussions, right? So they'll say, okay, what kind of color do you want, right? They will also determine what the color should be. Maybe it should be green and white, right? So now they will now have that, right? So they now say, okay, right now we are looking at the home page from the UI perspective. So some organization will have it like this, home page UI, but some will just have home page. Then they will now come here, they will describe this story. Then they will now have UI, they will have data, they will have, you understand? So they will now write story for each of these components of this user story. UI, data, backend. They will have stories for this, right? After they've written all the details of the stories, they will also have something like supporting document, right? To show maybe like a mock-up, right? So acceptance criteria. Erica, I know you have some user stories. So I guess maybe we'll use that. So let me copy this. So that you can quickly share your user story. We can add that to it, right? To use. So they will now have the acceptance criteria. So acceptance criteria is just to say, for this story, but right now we are dealing just with the UI, right? So we're saying for this story, for this UI story, this will be our acceptance criteria. The home page should contain the name of the app, Flaky Music. The home page should do this like that. Then they will save this, right? That these are what they want to do. So based on that, some team, what we did before at the beginning to get the high level, some team don't do that. They will now do this at this refinement level, right? After they've estimated they've broken down all this work, they will now say, oh, after they finish breaking down, let's say that we've done the, Erica, what kind of user stories did you create?
It's under credit card. Yeah, so these ones, I just making a note, the ones that you're showing here, they're great user stories, but they're not mine. So I just want to give credit where it's due. But the ones under credit card, those are some that I put together today in case you're pressed for time.
Okay, yeah, this is very good. Okay, let's use this. So let's use that. Let's see that. Okay. So let's see what Erica has done here. So see credit card, right? So now what Erica did was credit card as a user card, as a story card. Then she now started putting the different stories, right, that can be under this credit card, right? User story 1, access to payments, right? As a customer, I want to be able to select my payment option so that I can purchase my item using my credit card. Then she wrote all the acceptance criteria. You can see how the acceptance criteria are long, right? Because she has to determine for each field, for all the details. She even also has to determine the received payment status of their purchase, successful or unsuccessful. They have to receive that status if their purchase was successful or unsuccessful, right? And she wrote all the details, right? User story 2. So Erica, sometime, like if you decide that the story card should just be credit card, right? What they do is, let's go to credit card now. So I will show you. So you can see that you put all your stories in the description, right? So what they will do is that for this story, they will now have something we call task, right? Erica?
Oh yes, I'm listening. Thanks.
Okay. So I'm going to create a child issue here, right?
Okay.
This child issue, I'll put my first story there.
Thanks. Yeah, because I wasn't sure, and I said, let me just put it all in one place, and then we can figure it out in class.
Which is fine as well. So they'll put that there. Then the user story 2, you create another child issue because everything is related to credit card, right? Then you create the third one. I think you have one more here. And well done. This is like proper. Are you a business analyst?
In training, yes.
Oh, I think you should even go for a product owner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the compliment.
So the user stories, then they will have it here, right? Now, some organization, these stories, they won't put it as tasks. They will now say, by the time they start analyzing, based on what Erica has done here, do you think this credit card story is a one estimate based on what Erica is saying we need to do here? If we are going to re-estimate this, do you think it's going to be a 1?
No. It's probably like a 6 or 8, maybe.
Timmy?
Oh, my hands. Oh, sorry.
Okay, Bab.
No, it's not. Obviously, she's provided a lot of light and details into it.
Exactly.
That they might have to break down even the stories themselves.
Exactly.
Instead of making them parent and child thing, because you can get lost in the process and you want to do a thorough job.
Exactly. So then I'll say, this payment is even, no, we can't do that. We have to do credit card payment as Epic. You understand?
Okay. Yeah.
Credit card payment will not be an Epic. Then each of this will not be a user story. So one user story will be here. As the customer, I want to be able to select payment options and all that. So if we now say, let's go back now to backlog. So let's say this is what you do in refinement, right? You've now agreed that we need to create an Epic called credit card payments, right? So now all these stories we add on that credit card, they will not be one story. You know, you add them in one story, they will not become one story cards. So under this Epic, you already have like 3, right? Then for each of the story, you can also now document the task that needs to be done. That's what you now put as the child here. Okay? So that's what they do in refinements. They try to refine what they need to do. You get it? So let's now... Okay.
If I understand correctly, then the tasks would be the child stories? The child...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you can see that if I go back to this credit card now, you can see that when here now is showing that there are subtasks under this story, right? Because when you have a story, you can still break it down that maybe it will have the UI element, it will have the data element. You now start creating stories for them. UI elements, maybe the UI, page, you have, because that one can be assigned to someone else. So right, you can see here now, I can assign this story to someone else. I can assign it to Chineye. I can assign this to you. Then I can assign this to Roland, right? And because by the time they are estimating all this child story, they might realize that this is, so it's a lot of work. That's why when someone was saying that one user story, how many people are going to be working on? So it depends on the part they are working on, right? So you just need to understand the team and put all that in place. But this is a very good job for you to sit down. You're even thinking about the order fulfillment story. You talk about the escalating gateways payment issues. Good job. It shows your thinking capacity, right? So look at, there's another way you can also use to, I think it's called Spider. So this is another techniques that you can use to split your story, right? To understand every element of your story, right? You look at it from the spike. Spike is, I don't really know what we need to do, but let's do a research. Let's do a prototype, what it might look like. You can look at the different parts. Look at the data element. Are there going to be business rules? What interface do we need to consider? Right? So as a business, you need to be thinking of all those things, right? So you look at this, it helps you to understand your stories because you're looking at it from all those elements. The rules, the data, is there going to be a data from here? Where does that data go? So I need to have a story for where the data go. You get what I'm saying? So that you have a robust story, robust acceptance criteria. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So let's say now we now have all these details already, right? Let's say this is now our, so I'll just use this like that, right? So let's say after we estimated all this, we have, let's say 8, right? Remember, see now it's showing 19, right? So maybe you say, oh, we might not be able to do this story because we estimated for 16. You understand? So that would be too much. We might look for something easier that is more valuable to the product owner. We'll bring it up here, right? So that we can now start our work because we've re-estimated. So that's what you do in your refinement planning, just getting ready. So now let's say we've completed our refinement planning. Now we want to start our sprint. So what do you do in your sprints, right? In sprint planning, you come up with a product vision again. The Scrum Master will say, okay, remember what we're trying to build, right? We are trying to build flaky app, this is what you're trying to do. This is our focus. This is what we have from our refinement. Is everybody still committed to this? Are we going to have holiday during this sprint? What is the capacity? The capacity of the team is 16, right? Now, remember, Temi is here. Even sometimes you don't even to assign anybody here, right? They will just bring the story. It might not even be assigned at that point in time. You now say, Temi will now say, oh, I might not be available for 2 days. I've been registered for a training. Obviously, we know that we might not be able to do 16 story points, right? So maybe we're not saying, okay, 14 might be good because we know that Temi is going to take some time off during this sprint. So we are as a team, we are now committing to 14 story points, right? So that's the capacity we are dealing with, right? And imagine this is not the first sprint. Some of the other things you will consider is what is our past experience? Some of the feedbacks you want to think about is while you're planning your sprint, right? So that's what you do in your sprint planning, right? You make sure that the team is committing to the work. They've agreed on the work they need to do. Sometimes some organization is in the sprint planning. You will do your estimation, right? They might not finish it in refinement. They will now re-estimate in sprint planning that this is the work now. You've seen all the acceptance criteria. You know what we need to do. Let's re-estimate this work. They will now re-estimate that work. They will agree to it and say, okay, this is what we need to do. Everybody has committed to it. Based on our values, we've agreed that this is what we are committing to, and we will get it done, right? Everybody will focus on it, and everybody will agree. Then they will now say, so what is our sprint goal for this sprint, right? So you need to write your sprint goal, right? Most of the time, the product owner will help with this sprint goal, right? The product owner will help with it. But sometimes it's the team's effort to put the goal together. So we can just say the team will focus on completing the home page, login page, right? Login page and the credit card payments, right? So it might not even be all the credit card payments. It might even be just one part. What was the first item on your credit card the credit card story again, right? What was the first item, Erica?
I think it was just be able to view and select payment options.
Okay, so to view credit card payments, that might just be what we are focusing on. So you now say this is your goal for the sprint. When is our sprint starting? Our sprint is starting on the today is 28 now. So let's say 28. When is our sprint ending? Remember, we decided that we're going to do a 2-week sprint, right? So let's say we're starting at 6:30 p.m. So 2 weeks. 2 weeks will be what? 28, 5, 12, right? So we just say finishes on the 11 at 3:30, right? Now everybody agrees, say we're good. Scrum Master, confirm, we're good. Team, we're committing to this and we'll get the work done, okay? Update. Now everything is done. 14 story points, then you start the sprint. You know when she was showing the spreadsheet, they started, right? 14, then you start the sprint. 3 issues will be included in this sprint, yes. Sprint 1, yes. The timing, the goal, yes. Start, you agreed. Everybody is together, you confirm Scrum Master, and you start the sprint. So you see that when you start the sprint, the board changes to this. Remember we did this flow yesterday, right? To show that we are making sure our definition of done is in our workflow so that we don't miss it, right? So now we now have this, right? So everyone will now start working. Your sprint has started. Then you end your sprint planning and you all go. Then you meet the next day for daily stand-up, right? You're coming to review the work to say, okay, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? Do you have any impediments? I don't say all those things. What I just ask you, I say, okay, Erica, do you have any concerns, any questions, and what are you working on, right? And you tell me. You are not telling me as a person. You are updating your team members. You are making the work transparent. You are telling them, right? If you do not move your card to in progress, I'll say, Erica, don't forget to move your card, right? Even if I don't say it, Babs will remind you. Babs will tell you, don't forget to move your card, Erica, if you're already working on that, so that we know you're working on that. So, we don't pick up that card again, right? Those kind of things, that's what you do in your daily Scrum, right? Sometimes some people want to talk too much during the daily Scrum. The Scrum Master, you facilitate. You tell them, okay, can we put that in the parking lot? Or you say, can I quickly go through everyone? Can everyone quickly give their impediments or concern? They will come back to you. Or you say, can we put it in the parking lot? After the daily Scrum, we can discuss that. That's what you do as the Scrum Master. You make sure everything. It will get to a point, your team will be high performing. They don't need you every day, right? But if they are not, you have to be there, especially in this virtual world, because they are going to be using your room, like the invites you put in place, right? For them to get that done, right? So they are going to be using that. So you want to make sure you have co-hosts in case you're not going to be available. They can start the meeting, and stuff like that. Okay, so that's what you do in your daily Scrum. So that's what they call daily Scrum. So you keep doing that till day 9. It doesn't mean that you guys will not collaborate. Mercy can be working with Chini somewhere, right? But when they come to the dailies, they all give their updates. Mercy will talk about our own. I was working on the UI workflow and all that. And Chini too will come. I worked with Mercy yesterday on the UI. We're doing this, we're doing that. You understand? Everybody give their update, even though you work together, right? And this stories, there's something we didn't add. We are also going to add things like supporting document. If you have supporting documents, right? This is an example of a supporting document. Can you see like a small diagram here? Can you see my Excel sheet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you can see that small diagram here, right? That's like a supporting document, right? You can also, your supporting document can be a workflow. It can be screenshots of the applications that maybe the application is already in existence. They just want to change something. They want to remove a field. You put the screenshots, you show them, you can use an arrow to show them where they are changing the field. Supporting document, something to just help them get what you are trying to do, right? If it's necessary to have a supporting document. So you add it to, right, here, right? You can attach it, right? You can attach that your supporting document. Let me see, I don't know what this is. You see, you can attach your supporting document. You just click on attach and attach your supporting document, right? And now it's showing that this is in progress, okay? And that's how you continue till day 9. But remember that as day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 day is going on, you will pick one of those days to do your refinement again. You are doing refinement for the next sprint, in readiness for the next sprint, okay? So now we've completed our sprint planning and we've showed you what we do in daily Scrum. Daily Scrum is 15 minutes. Everybody come on board and speak, right? So I wanted you to watch a video on sprint planning and daily Scrum, but I think we'll watch the video on sprint planning, then we can close from there. Then tomorrow, we'll watch the video on daily Scrum, a dysfunctional Scrum, how to manage conflicts. Then we'll do sprint review and sprint retrospective. And that will be the end, okay?
I don't think I see a link for classes tomorrow on our schedule.
Yeah. And we have a 7 p.m. sharp HR session that usually goes 2 hours.
Oh, tomorrow?
Yeah, and it's a mandatory meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, unless
if maybe admin wants us to move HR further, if tomorrow will be the last Scrum class or something, but it's not on our schedule anyway. So maybe
okay, I'll speak to
Babatope?
I'll speak to Ima, know what the plan is, and they will let you know. So tomorrow was supposed to be the last class.
Okay.
To finalize, but I will speak to, so we'll know if it's going to be tomorrow or Monday. But that should be the final class. So we're supposed to do the sprint review, the retrospective, and watch the daily Scrum dysfunctional team, right? To see what issues you can experience.
Okay, thanks.
So we'll confirm that. I don't know if it's already 9 o'clock. I'm thinking if you can watch the sprint planning video before you go so that sticks. Then tomorrow we'll start with the you don't have to finish everything because I know you have an understanding of it, but just see how this team is doing that, okay? I'm going to share my screen now. Hello?
What we're going to go through now is an iteration planning meeting. So this is the first day of our iteration, and all of us are gathered here together to talk about which stories are top priority for this iteration and go through them in a little bit of detail and then break down the tasks and effort and work. And so we're completely clear about starting tomorrow or even this afternoon who works on what. So one of the things, the activities that happened before we came to the meeting over here is pre-planning. What did you guys do in the pre-planning session? It looks like you've been working ahead of us. What did you already accomplish?
We got to look at what the screen was going to look like.
For all the stories that are in this iteration?
Right.
Okay, and then did you define acceptance criteria?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so you have acceptance criteria. Okay, very good. So we want to take a look at that and then begin to facilitate. So the goal of the planning meeting, again, is that everyone's on the same page before we begin to execute the iteration. So Kelly, take it away.
And like all good facilitators, we have an agenda for our sprint planning meeting. This is just a typical agenda. We always look at what stories are not done from our previous sprint. This is our first sprint, so we don't have any stories to even worry about not being done. Second agenda item, review our current iteration goal. And that's always coming from our product owner. And Melissa, can you kind of share with the team what you expect us to complete, what our goal is for this sprint?
Well, we really want to get that first claim entry finished this iteration, and especially so that we can start demonstrating to the sponsor that we really are delivering. So I would say those first two stories, the 2-car injury story, and then the successful notification. I think if we can get those two done, we're basically demonstrating that we're going to come right out and get something done.
Any questions of what our goal is for this sprint? Thanks, Melissa. It's really key, especially our first sprint, to prove that we can do this, that this Agile works. I know we all can do it, and now it's just a matter of getting down to work and tasking out. John, something to add?
Yeah, I think the other one of the additional goals too, I know we talked about early on, is making sure that we get some agent feedback as far as getting this out there. So another goal of why we want to get these two stories done in particular, so that we can get some agent feedback, so that if we need to keep refining the layout, the design to meet that kind of easy to use criteria, that's another key goal for, I think, this iteration.
Excellent point, because get feedback early, assess where we're at. Are we meeting the target early versus 6 months down the road when it's going to be a lot of cost and time to retrofit something? You bet.
That's a great point. So maybe, Melissa, you could send out an invite to the agent to make sure that we have them there.
Probably the next time we do. It might even be a task. Make sure we interview, survey, whatever. Okay. Thank you for your goals. Now we got a couple stories for this that we really want to dive in and look at what the story is, review the user interface, the acceptance test criteria, give you all an opportunity to ask questions of one another, both technical and business questions, so you understand, so you know exactly what we're going to do this sprint for this story and then for each task. Then we'll break down the tasks, put them up on our board, our task board up here, and then we'll actually volunteer for a task and make sure we have the right hours, the right estimate. And then, of course, team commitment. We'll make sure we are not overcommitted, that we're meeting your goals, Melissa as a product owner, and that everybody's basically comfortable that we can accomplish this.
You should probably also review if you have any time off or holidays, or if there's anything going on in the next iteration, better talk about it now so we don't overcommit ourselves or vacation time.
Good idea. Okay. Shall we jump in?
Yep.
Our first story 101. As an agent, I want to enter a claim for a 2-car injury so that is automatically processed. This is our UI, our user interface. We mocked it up, all our acceptance criteria. I know you guys are familiar with this. You want me to read through this again?
Melissa, maybe you can, just as a product owner, just give us a quick overview of the story again for some of the developers that are not part of the pre-planning session.
Right, so this is basically the screen where the agent's going to input the claim information. So, the policy number, the member ID. What we want then is an auto-population of the insured's information, the date of the incident, the type, and you can see we actually have tabs going across there. There's just a lot of information on these screens, and we don't want to overwhelm them with everything on one screen. So we have a drop down there for the date, so we're going to need some validation there to make sure they can't enter a future date there, only something current or in the past. And then types, and we actually are probably going to have to take that as a task for us to retrieve the types that would be valid to give to you guys. And then down below is where they can upload pictures of the incident, so the vehicles that were involved in the scene of the accident.
So at this level, are you just wanting kind of the required field validation to take place for this first iteration, and kind of if they try to save it without having all the fields, to give them some sort of indication of that?
Oh yeah, we definitely want some validation. Did we separate validation as a separate story, or is this all in one?
It's all part of the same one.
Okay, yeah, we want the validation. So, we want this all the way done through the submittal, so all of the validation.
So do you have that documented yet, the actual specific rules, or is that something that you'll still have to?
I'm actually writing a task out for me to work with Melissa to get all those. We have the top level ones, but just making sure that we're more specific about what the actual items are and the drop down list and all that. So we'll have that to you guys here pretty early.
Right,
later.
and I'm going to be leaning on Michelle pretty heavily too, because she does this on a daily basis.
Well, we talked during pre-planning too that on this specific one, we want to be able to get the claim number. We know they're going to have to come back and add information to this type of a claim, but for a 2-car injury accident, they just have to have a number so they can give it to the other party in the accident and get that ball rolling. This won't happen in one shot. We're gonna have to get it started and then be able to add to it.
Okay, and then when you enter policy number, member ID, that's going out and doing some lookups, so we'll have to tie into that policy system on the back end if you want that to populate. And as far as, do you just want them to be able to enter it and save it, or do you want to be able to go back and update it?
They're gonna have to go back and update it later.
Okay,
yes.
so this iteration includes add new and update for this screen.
This screen, I think add new should be fine. So just add new, get a confirmation of the number. I guess that's our second story, is to say
So
that
we have a separate story for updating.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's all within, it's within this sprint. But this is really to say, this is all the information that we have at this point, send that in, and then it's enough to get this process started.
Okay.
It won't complete in this sprint.
What other questions do you have?
Do you guys need specific test data for do we need to get members?
Yes, we will need for each of those verifications. That's one of the things we want to do is basically take those data sets that I can work with you to help create, and then put those into an automated test. So we can run through all those scenarios, run through both positive, negative, and exception cases.
Okay. And Michelle, what you've just asked us a lot of times, a task that we forget about. What do we need for test data? Allows us to do. Product owner, you can come in, look at our empty task board now, but look at our task board and you can see right away, are the green in progress, are we in the testing? We should be able to see where all the stories are at. So it's a good visual, really.
That'll be great. And then Lisa can stop by anytime she wants also to check our progress.
Also, we decided to put the story up here, the amount of hours, and of course the task name. And we need to have a complete task name. It doesn't have to be in a paragraph, but it has to be more than just test.
So what are some best practices around task breakdown? I mean, can we have a task? I mean, how big, how small, just in general? Let's have that conversation.
Okay, let's. How often did you say we meet to talk about our tasks?
Every day.
Okay.
So every day we'll have the daily stand-up. But how do you guys feel about a task, for example, that's about 80 hours?
Too big.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is try to keep a task in about 8 hours. So that's kind of what we want to do here, is just try to keep our tasks small. Sometimes you're eager to just develop story 1, but we kind of want to break that down into a little bit more of what you guys are doing, because that'll help me, as me and Michelle here are testing these things and looking at them. So.
And if the tasks are too big, then we won't be able to identify impediments, because we can go too long without any kind of red flags popping up.
Exactly. Excellent points. You bet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so if you've broken down your tasks, we can put them up on the wall. Can everyone just read out loud what are the various tasks that we've got going on for this story?
I need to provide a list of agent numbers for testing and a list of the claim types for that drop-down box on the screen.
So I've started with the business team doing some of our behavioral-driven development, so we make sure that we have all the test scenarios for development team, but we're not done. So I have 3 hours to document all the validation details and kind of get more of that information.
Right now I've got 2 tasks so far, and they're both basically the same thing, but for the 2 different user acceptance tests, but to actually create a data-driven integration test to verify, so basically with some data that we get for like the policy number and member ID that I can hit the service, verify that those actually exist. So I've got 6 hours for that, and I've got 1 for the agent for the user acceptance 2 to make sure that the member belongs to the agent. Okay. So.
And I have a task here for the actually building the integration framework, because since we're integrating with the mainframe, I need to have my BizLog solution pretty much created, the schemas, maps, orchestration, and adapter to integrate with that mainframe. So I put about 12 hours for that one. I think it's a bit complex. And then I also retrieve the insured information from mainframe based on the policy number and member ID.
I just have a few, building up that initial claim entry screens. I have about 12 hours for that. I know it's more than a day, but there's several different sections of that site. So if I needed to, I could actually break that down to build the main page with some of the functionality. Also need to build out the object model to support that screen from the database level, building out the table.
Is that doable?
Yeah, I can break it down and kind of have the agent information and notifications and the navigation separate and then do the rest of it.
And that will work for you?
Yes, that will help a lot.
That's great. If we can't break it down anymore, that's fine. But again, you just heard why it's important, and especially if you're going to be gone the last 2 days of the sprint, that's perfect.
And the earliest we can get it to her for testing, the better. Because one of the dysfunctions is that we sometimes check in the code all towards the end of the iteration. And of course, that causes a lot of panic because you won't have enough time to test, you won't have enough time to automate it. So that's what we call, do you guys know what that's called when you're testing at the end of the iteration? Wagile. You're doing waterfall within the agile iteration.
I call it panic, but it's not.
John has some.
A couple of last tasks. So from really the architecture level, we had some design for the integration. I think one of the key points here is we're not going to design all of the integration with the mainframe. We're going to design the pieces we need for this current iteration.
For this current iteration. Perfect. That's called agile architecture. That's perfect.
And the other part of that is the same thing from the database.
Doing with the team, and there's 3 people on the team, do we include all that time for them as well, or just for the
Our tech leads, they're going to do a lot of code reviews, and if we don't allocate that, at least know that that work has to happen, we may have too much work to do, and we won't get all our stories done.
Right.
So the answer is yes. We really do want to, make sure everybody's allocated with a certain task.
Okay.
Like Summer said, yeah, everybody should have an individual task, especially if they move at different times. They may start in progress at a different time.
So are you guys ready to put your task on the wall?
Come on.
All right.
I guess my question for you guys, you have all, well, the only one I have is the approval.
Okay, so just put this one. Team, as you can see, we have columns up there. Our stories are there, our tasks that are not started. The next column is everything in progress, what's in process, and then a done column. And as you start a task, it moves from task to in process. When you're finished with that task, it moves to done. That means it's been verified, tested. And then the one in pink, the last column is for impediments, any issues you may have being pulled off the project.
And put your name on it, because this is going to be yours now. If you need to update or change that estimate, feel free to do so, because this is your task right now, so you can change the hour estimate. And then a common best practice right now, or a common practice, the word best practice is not good, but a common practice is to put the ETA date, commit date. When do you think you're going to get it done by? What we used to do for a long time is put hours remaining every day. And we found that that was really not a very valuable thing to do because people will continue to burn down hours. So what I'm suggesting is just put when are you going to get it done by? So 8:13. And if you don't get it done by 8:13, cross that off and then put 8:14 or 8:15, whatever that case may be. So that's from a day-to-day perspective.
Okay, so what I was just showing you there is that they are collaborating, they are doing everything together. I saw a question about, this thing is confusing, all this, but oh my God, if not for COVID, if you guys were, did you hear when I said war room? That's what happens in the war room. But things are getting better. Jira board, Asana, all these things are now coming in place to help the team, right? They're saying, okay, let's use these tools to help. But this is how it was done. If you go to some organization, their war room, you will see all these things everywhere. And they go there to move their stories and all that, right? But obviously, it became cumbersome. Things were getting more cumbersome as more stories are added to the backlog and all that. And before you know it, they started having boards like Jira board to help, Asana and all that. So yes, Temi is right. This is how it was done. If you go to organization, you see the war rooms, right? But now all this are not done anymore because they now have Jira Enterprise and they use that. That's why you see everybody that's who can use Jira and Confluence, who can use Jira and Confluence. Okay. So I think we're going to end there. You can see that everyone is talking. The technical people, someone was saying Salesforce is written. Yes, as long as you know one technology, it helps you with other technology. You're still going to talk about the same thing, the layout, the validation rules. right? You're going to talk about the business rules, all those things, right? So it's almost the same. So everything you know is still going to you're still going to use it, right? And you don't go to a team and keep quiet. You have to get involved. It's very important. You have to be involved, right? You can keep quiet because if you don't understand it and they give you a task and the task is there for 8 days, you are not saying you don't understand. When you were supposed to ask questions, you didn't ask questions. When you're supposed to get involved, you didn't get involved. So nobody keeps quiet on a team, right? You get involved. You understand very well as well so that you can. I know when you join a team at the beginning, it's difficult, but as long as you're collaborating, you're asking the right questions, you'll get better on the team. Sure. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I've taken 16 minutes of your time. Thank you. I'll confirm if you have a class tomorrow or Monday. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Florence. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you.